spectrum is manifest in each vertical arrangement. The horizontal arrangements moving in 8 sets of binary color pairs correspond to the woof of history.
Woof woof.
In the information processing of the genetic code, the pattern also holds true. One strand of 2 holds the template of the other and the entire pattern of both. This is demonstrated by the far left chromatic strand's correspondence to the movement of color to the left of the mystic column dividing the spring, north, and autumn, south. As one can see, this strand is not only the pattern of its counterpart strand on the other side of the mystic column, but as a single strand it contains information of the entire chromatic spectrum as well. Thus, not only is there a complete equivalence between chromocellular and Cy-band chromatics, but the chromatic code is written into the most primary structures of life and energy. The purpose of radiosonics is to release the radiant chromatic structures contained within the dynamics of life and electromagnetism through biopsychic activation. This is a task comparable to, though infinitely more beneficial than, the release of energy through splitting the atom. This and other maps presented here are keys to the attainment of that end. However, that end will not be attained at all until there is a complete reorientation. One is tempted to say complete repolarization, in the direction in which man thinks he is going. This reorientation is not simply a matter of thinking that there are alternative routes by which energy may be released for the purpose of maintaining a presumed mastery over nature. What is actually required is a kind of revulsion in the deepest levels of one's nature, a turning in the deepest seat of consciousness. Such revulsion, a turning away from base egotistical and aggressive drives, must be followed up and supplemented by spiritual attunement practices that continue to foster a realization of the ultimately selfless nature of oneself and all beings. Such selfless realization is the breeding ground of selfless behavior, that behavior alone that can properly activate the biopsychic centers and, linked with the template of electro and geomagnetic flows, release the temple of man, the planet mind made not only conscious but functional and visible as well. By its nature, synthesis implies a joining of beginning and end, a harmonizing of what was active at the commencement of things with what was only potential. This is what is described by the holonomic recollection circuit, a movement that originates in the AC template, crosses over to its polar opposite, the CA template, and completely fulfills the pattern there. Once fully filed, the movement of thought energy and consciousness must return to the template of origin, the AC, and complete the synthesis, bringing together what has been aboriginally present with what has skillfully developed through the civilizing harmonization of the planet. In this process, history is but the middle term of an equation that is as mythic as it is psychogenetic in its dimensions. Myth differs from what we know as science in that it is based in a synesthetic mode of knowing and being. Thus, in passing back to the AC template, we leave science and pass again to mythic consciousness, but a mythic consciousness empowered and enlightened by our perilous crossing through history. The new and synesthetic mythic consciousness is activated by the recognition of an attunement to the guiding global reality of the Cy-band, the visionary matrix common to man, the mental envelope of planet Earth. In this map we see the Cy-band matrix activated according to the chromatic code. What appears is a resplendent set of 4 feathered rainbow columns, the 4 rainbow houses of the sun. The mystic columns running down the center of the 4 rainbow houses of the sun are nothing less than the 4 rivers of life burning with the purity of emptiness, for emptiness alone makes possible the primal binary alternation providing the heartbeat of the principle of universal resonant polarity. These are the houses of vision. These are the rivers of paradise. These are the palaces of wisdom. These are signposts of our collective destiny. In the holonomic field pattern, art, science, and sacred order are unified into a single image, a primary configuration that nonetheless contains the whole story. Accommodated by the Cy-band matrix is a single binary triplet configuration. Chromatically keyed to the colors of the alpha and the omega, red and purple respectively, the central portion of the binary triplet configuration opens out on either side of the mystic column into 2 symmetrically inverse chromatic polarity circuits. The result is a complete binary configuration of 16 parts. The total 16-part binary figure cannot, however, be understood as an independent entity, for brief examination shows that the side portions corresponding to the colors blue, green, yellow, and indigo are actually right and left halves of 2 other binary triplet configurations. Thus, our own psi-bank matrix is interdependent within a function of a much larger matrix pattern, that of the solar system, and the solar system itself is but a single matrix in an immense galactic field. It is also notable that the 16-part configuration floats over a field that consists of a micro and a macro configuration of the primary resonant field model. The micro configuration comprises the core of the macro configuration, which resonates outward in concentric waves, reaching its climax in an intense ring of radiation that unites the alpha and omega ends of the spectrum. The center of the microcore corresponds to the center of the greater mystic column, comprised of the numbers 13 and 7 repeated. The sum total of these numbers, 40, corresponds to 1/2 the total number of units comprising this greater mystic column. We may ask, where do we go from here? Once we have comprehended and mastered the 2-template, 8-plate operations of our own psi-bank, obviously leading to the code of 16, 8x2, 1 next. Once again the genial Ben Franklin has provided the clue. No sooner had he completed T-square of 8 than Franklin triumphantly brought forth the square of 16, providing the numerical clue to the deciphering of the 16-part solar galactic microchip of our collective planetary destiny. The pulse of the magic square of 16 is 2056, a figure that is the multiple of 257 and 8. As an irreducible prime number, 257 is nevertheless intimately connected to the sets of binary progressions, as it may also be written, 162 plus 1. Yet, in relation to the code of 8 and 13 with which we have been dealing, with their multiples of 64, 82, and 260, 13x20, 2056 as 162 plus 1x8 represents a major leap in the quality of our knowing and being. By analogy, we may view the difference between where we are now and where we must be, in order to become properly galactic, as the difference between 13, the prime number base of the magic square of 8, and 257, the prime number base of the magic square of 16. The interval between 13 and 257 represents nothing less than the interval between the fragmented, incoherent, individual, and socio-political consciousness of the present day, and the completely unified field consciousness of humankind functioning as a single planetary organism in conjunction with a totally visible and operable psi-bank. At this point we need say no more. There is much to be done. Let this pattern, the 16-part polar binary circuit configuration, the holonomic field pattern, suffice as an inspirational guiding image of wholeness, a resonant field vision, a radiosonic glimpse of our potential, a radiant call to realize our nature fully through realizing the nature of all that is around us. Afterward, to cross the great water of history. The prelude to map 49. The number of maps comprising this rendition of the Earth ascending is 48. That is the number signifying the conclusion of the completion of the CA template, the hominization of this planet. It also corresponds to Kua 48 in Ching, the well, the Kua that provides the key for moving across the corpus callosum of history, return. The Kua, the other side of the return passage of the corpus callosum, number 49, corresponds to revolution, molting. In a sense we have provided all the maps needed for the moment, and so each reader may construct map 49 from what has been presented, according to where he or she may find themselves. In fact, the entire set of maps and text comprising Earth ascending may be taken as an incentive to cross the great water, and in so doing instigate the global revolution necessary to place us once again on a firm footing with the evolutionary process. In order to better prepare for this momentous crossing and the revolution that it entails, we should consider more fully the commentaries to this critical Kua, number 49. The sequence, the setup of a well must necessarily be revolutionized in the course of time. Hence there follows the Kua, revolution, this traditional comment placing Kua 49 in relation to its predecessor, number 48, is instructive, as is the miscellaneous note appended to that comment. Revolution means removal of that which is antiquated. Revolution, 49, stands between the only two Kua presenting man-made objects in Ching, the well, 48, and the cauldron, 50. Thus revolution is an transformative bridge. The well represents the necessary, but at the same time artificial, structure of civilization, the cauldron, the means for ultimate transformation. What is antiquated, requiring removal, are not physical or material encumbrances, but attitudes that are no longer attuned to the actual situation of the time. That the attitudes blocking proper use of the well are entrenched in the material trappings of power and convention is precisely the reason why revolution is called for. The consideration of the enormity of the task, passing back from the CA to the AC templates, from history to posthistory, indicates that we cannot be dealing with a situation in which one set of power holders is toppled to be replaced by another. Rather, we are dealing with total holonomic revolution, revolution by attunement. A commentary on the judgment of the Kur provides further insight into the carrying out of this kind of revolution, revolution by attunement. Heaven and earth bring about revolution, and the four seasons complete themselves thereby. Tang and Wu brought about political revolution because they were submissive toward heaven and in accord with men. The time of revolution is truly great. Like the natural process by which the seasons complete themselves, revolution by attunement is carried out first of all through being submissive to heaven, to the sacred order of things, and thereby placing oneself in accord with men. The true needs of humanity with which one must align oneself are not furthered by ideology or war, ambition for power, or senseless material glut and exploitation. The true needs of humanity are furthered through compassionate consideration of the profoundly selfless and spiritual nature that binds us not only to each other, but to all that is. The comprehensiveness of genuine revolution, carried out by men and women in accord with mankind and submissive to heaven, is made clear in the image of revolution itself. The image. Fire in the lake, the image of revolution, thus the superior man, sets the calendar in order and makes the seasons clear. Through the presentation of the holonomic equation and particularly the holonomic recollection circuit, we have the means and the pattern for setting the calendar in order. In the psi matrix underlying the holonomic recollection circuit, we have the key to making the seasons clear.